A little while back, I put myself through the task of playing more than 30 Steam Next Fest demos, partly because I wanted more of a chance to talk about upcoming games here on the channel, and partially because committing to a project felt like a good way of pushing myself to go out and get the most out of Steam Next Fest. Tens of hours later, a handful of games sat at the very top of my tier list, and Skin Deep shot straight onto my watch list. Now, after finishing it, I'm happy to say that what I saw in the game still remains just as strong and striking, and it builds meaningfully on its most promising elements. There's this form of bluffing that some games do, just before they slam their cards on the table, where they really want to convince you of the central premise. However, once they get there, you realise the game's hand was nothing but an ace high. The best way to show you actually have the firepower on your hand that your Steam page has been advertising is to have coherence. A single commitment to a world, a story, a vision. Skin Deep isn't bluffing in the slightest, and its winding, thoughtful systems prove that with every inch there is to play. Skin Deep defies its namesake and is so much deeper than you may otherwise think. Here's what happened when I played the game for myself. Immersive sims can be a bit of a hard genre to nail down. In fact, you can reasonably argue it's not actually a genre at all, but more so an ideology or philosophy for an approach to the world. When I say systems-based gameplay, there's a good chance you either think that's an apt description of a genre that has a holistic cause and effect, or you think it's a nonsense term that kind of means nothing unless you already know what I'm talking about. Well, I don't know if I would actually call Skin Deep an immersive sim, but I would certainly call it an immersive sim-like. I think a large reason why indie games struggle to make immersive sims is that they opt for many mechanics and systems that clash organically with each other to create effects rather than scripted events. This requires a heavy adherence to the physics, logic, and understanding of worlds that make them intricate and presumably tedious to make. Historically, they have also underperformed relative to their budget. System Shock 2 and Thief are some of the most beloved, yet both performed so poorly that it led to financial problems for Looking Glass Studios, the original developer, which eventually led to the closure of the studio. However, those design principles led to revolutions across the industry at large, with their DNA even existing in the player expression and creativity-driven physics of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Skin Deep is far simpler than these, and comes with an adjusted scope and price point to match, but the room it leaves for expression is still exhilarating in its own right. Unthawed from cryosleep, you are an insurance agent who is stowed away on highly valuable ships in space, and you must take out pirates and set free talking cats who said pirates have imprisoned. This is until you find out the leader of the sudden surge of pirate raids is someone who looks exactly like you. The goal of the game is to earn money by rescuing imprisoned cats, sending pirates hurtling back into space, and spending that money on tech to find out how to take down the pirate threat. You don't manage the money and don't get more or less depending on certain factors, so as long as you finish missions, you will see the end of the game. However, it's the gameplay that keeps Skin Deep going. If you break a window into space, the vacuum may pull pirates out and kill them, but standing on that glass may cause your foot to bleed as Nina lacks any footwear, which you will have to fix so you don't bleed out as you walk around. At one moment, I used a trash chute to get outside because I didn't want to risk the airlock with enemies nearby, and this made me much easier to find as I started to smell. However, later on, I set up a trap and lured someone into it thanks to my unique scent. If you can't think of a way to utilize some sort of item or mechanic, there's a good chance you haven't found the best use of it yet. Pirates aren't easily dispatched though. Not only do they have multiple health bars, which means you can't just throw things at them all to knock them out, but you also have to deal with their head, which will automatically start to float back to a respawn point thanks to a fancy new insurance system implemented by the pirate leader. This means taking a pirate out may entail throwing soap on the ground, knocking them over, jumping on their back, slamming them into walls, popping their head off, then flushing their head down the toilet. When you have multiple pirates patrolling a ship, your best weapon is your mind, and maybe a combination of flammable hand soap and a lighter. The bleeding feet and crawling through vents conjures imagery of Die Hard, and in a sense, this is the closest I've got to the feeling of being John McClane in video game form, other than playing the Die Hard game, I guess. I don't know, for sure I haven't played it. Skin Deep does a good job of making you feel like you're improvising your way to a win on a ship that would kill any other person, and it gives you a few special abilities to make it all a bit easier. When your health is depleted, you go down on the floor, where you can still crawl, interact with items, and hurt bad guys. Taking enough damage on the floor will kill you, and so will time as you bleed out. However, once per mission you may defibrillate, getting back on your feet and stunning nearby enemies. This can lead to you getting the upper hand as you jump on a pirate's back and send them hurtling into a sink. If you don't want to waste a defibrillator just yet, you can use health dispensaries while on the floor, which means you can spring away to cover and heal up. However, once spotted, you need to call off attacks via walkie-talkies or lines of communication, which are often sparse and limited in charge. This means the more time and resources you spend in levels, the more scrappy things become. This is a great system that makes you feel like you've won by the skin of your teeth in the hardest battles. To balance difficulty with game knowledge as you get further into Skin Deep, enemies are thrown into levels that have more health and can't be controlled when knocked over. Some extra depth is then added to combat with enemies that are capable of dropping mines that stun. The enemy variety isn't huge, but the ways you can dispatch them only gets better as you go along. Early on, you get a small tutorial explaining some mechanics almost before every mission, where you quickly figure out how each item works together to get the most out of your limited inventory space. However, missions are kept fresh through side objectives, which allow you to build weird mechanical machines, complete side quests, and generally mess with the world. These are not only a lot of fun to find, but also offer a distinct advantage in combat. One side mission has you take orders from a drive-thru, create the food in an adjacent room, and send it through a dumbwaiter. In return, you get given a gun or a duplicator. These little missions are engaging and often quite surprising. They are one of the best parts of taking on a new level. Skin Deep isn't all about the pirate ships though. Cats you save will email you, and every single one of them has a unique personality that comes out in their messages. You can then choose replies and have little conversations with them. This all builds towards the aesthetic and tone of the game, which is one that is so delightfully weird. I said at the start of this video that Skin Deep never feels like it's bluffing, and this is part of the commitment to the bit I was referring to. Cats meow loudly as you get them out of their cage, some of the game's biggest plot points are told via a projector in your bedroom, and cutscenes often involve you whipping from one place to the other, where you just have to get on board with its tone or ignore it altogether. I love this. Like the immersive sim elements, there are degrees to Skin Deep that make it a tad alienating, but wonderfully so. I got through the game in around 6 to 7 hours, but this was mostly rushing through, and you can go back through old missions and replay them after finishing, which is what I'd recommend doing and what I did. I enjoyed going through and figuring out the little secrets tucked away in the walls of each ship. Where some pirates hold keys to let the cats out, others hold tablets with notes alongside walkie-talkies. These tablets, mixed with notes around the base, paint a picture of the kinds of destruction that has happened while you were cryogenically frozen. You may wonder why all the vents are locked or why you can't get out of the airlock, and notes not only explain why things are the way they are, but also how to get out. These notes normally send you hunting down 4-letter codes and plugging that code into small terminals that can then bypass systems. There's a nice tactile feel to controlling computers through Skin Deep that works well to make you feel like a sleuth figuring the ship out. In a sense, it's sort of a puzzle game, a stealth game, an FPS game, and something else. The game is fairly short and enemy variety is fairly lacking given how great the gameplay is, and this actually leads me to like it a little less than I did in my time with the Next Fest demo, but I also think it's as good as the demo makes it out to be. That tightened scope allows it plenty of room in what it is to allow for player creativity and expression, and it itself is a very expressive game as a result. It's a mash of tons of ideas from System Shock to Die Hard, with aesthetic pulls from Alien and other 90s sci-fi, yet it comes away feeling wholly unique in almost every element. I think the immersive sim descriptor might actually detract from some of what makes the game work so well. It's very creative, but it's not as open-ended and free to break as you might anticipate. It takes clear inspiration from the design principle, but it's more like an immersive stealth FPS with elements of Hitman, Prey, and everything mentioned prior. It's a far more clever game than one might expect from its wacky facade, and that contributes to the tone of the game delightfully. Skin Deep is a pirate ship hurtling towards the unsuspecting space base that is your Steam backlog, but it's just light enough you may be able to clear it out before the arrival of the comet that is everything else you've been saying you'll play for the last few years. It's time to get out of cryo-freeze and feel the steel panels beneath your bare feet. Those are my thoughts on Skin Deep. Thank you for listening. I had a blast with this one. It was very good. I think there are elements that I think could have been better, but I also acknowledge that sometimes fixing those elements can take away from the tone. So there's a real catch-22 to how I might like to play this game. I did go back and I went through some of the missions, and there's some really good side objectives. Some of them I did while I was playing as well, but mostly it was if it appeared to me naturally to do it, I would then do it. And if it didn't come up in the space it took me to actually beat the base, I'd go back and do it later. But I would do both. I wouldn't get too lost in the weeds as you get through. I would make your way through the story, but if you've got that itch in your brain that just makes you want to go and search it, I would do it. It's a lot of fun. Those objectives are great, and the tone is so. I think fun is the best word I can think of for that. It's quite jovial and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and that makes it work as kind of parody, kind of not really well. Anyway, I've spent all this time talking about the game, and then I used the outro to talk about the game too. If you liked this video and want to support the channel, subscribing really helps. Liking the video also really helps. Maybe leaving a comment. I've been getting some really nice comments recently, and it means a lot. I'm now back home, so I should have a slightly better mic, but hay fever has started to hit me, so I also sound sick, and I probably will for the next 2 months. So that's unfortunate. Either way, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for reading, I guess, if I've got any text on the screen throughout this video, and if I don't, thank you for subscribing.